I don't know about everybody. I've definitely seen mixed feelings on Shura's Overdrive. I actually like it. I actually like it a lot. I'll talk about the like my takes on the form like after we like once we get to that point, like just going over the chapter. But obviously the thing I'm gonna gotta go over first was like getting to see Ziggy versus Shura Ziggy versus Nero, and it's always cool when you get to like first see like big characters within series fight. And like the closest we got besides that was what Justice versus Elsie, but that was like a skirmish where this should be like a full fight. And on top of that, this is them like set I think way more in like a situation for like a big battle, because like Elsie versus Justice was like an encounter. It's kind of like the gap between like when you play Pokemon, you get up to like one of the like legendaries, you get up to whatever location's at, and it's sitting there, and you got to go click on it, and then it's a battle. Versus like one of the like roaming Pokemon, you run to like Entei or Latios or anything like that. That's what the Elsie versus Justice one felt like for me. Still like a big deal, but it's not this. It doesn't carry the same weight pretty much. Jaguar being dead, like I'm actually still really surprised at that. Because it was weird that Mishima killed off a character like that so quickly. Because it's like he just got shown. He obviously is a big deal. Like usually when he does like characters like flexing over like other big characters like that. One, it's done it's done more in a way of something where it's like, oh, way more powerful characters are just gonna curb stomp fodder. Like it's just gonna be like, yeah, just to display this guy's a big deal, but we know this character is a way bigger deal. Like for instance, when Xenolith pulled down Elsie and Justice. Not the same thing, but it's like when you have a character that is just able to flex like a much higher position over another. But it's like the Galactica and the Interstellar were supposed to be like on level, and they even mentioned that Jaguar used to be Galactica level. So, well, he used to be part of the Galactica and then went into the Interstellar, so it's like he should definitely be at that level. It seemed more like just a sudden shot. And the dice themselves, I'm very curious as to, like, what exactly they do, because, like, so far they're, like, we know they have an ability, like, they seem to just kind of, like, predict aspects of, like, the future or something, and then kind of, like, feed it over to Nero. But, like, damage-wise, are they just really fast-moving, really, like, indestructible dice? Because the thing is, like, when you send an object with such a level, like with a certain level of speed, and it's just going to keep picking up force, and obviously like a small object moving like that, it can pierce through things super fast. So it's not like it's out of the realm of possibilities for him to be able to damage people with these, especially like, say, because they're relics, apparently they're related to Mother, that they could be like outright indestructible. So it could legitimately just come down to like a really weird trait of the dice on top of whatever ability that they have. But I gotta appreciate Ziggy for lifting up the chunk of the room that they were in and just kind of like have it up. One thing I love about like boss fights, it doesn't have to just be a main boss fight, because this is like second to last, but it's kind of like a bonus boss fight, whereas like Shiki versus Shura is elsewhere. I love it when they have like a cool terrain. Like I'm just thinking of like when you play video games and stuff, and it's like you get in a boss battle and just like setting up the environment. What does the platform look like? What is like the area you're battling them look like? And to see exactly like what exactly it made to like look out like thematically. Like what is the visual that's being presented as like their confrontation, and Ziggy lifting that up and then using his gravity manipulation to kind of like give him the ability to see all over the city, see like the robots and stuff attacking the civilians, the war that's going on. I thought that was just really cool. I like as both him as a character to do it, just as like a really cool like mental game kind of flex, but also on top of that, just setting the scene. And Nero doesn't seem bothered by it. He's just throwing more of these dice, just chucking them at him. He doesn't seem like it bothers him whatsoever. None of it is kind of tickling him. He's just like, well, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep doing it. And he ends up like throwing the dice right through Ziggy. They go through like his torso and his arm. Granted, he's a machine, so it's not gonna be the same damage. I want to know, like, outside of damaging his core, like how much damage could Ziggy take in order to keep going? And as on top of that, maybe, is that what Nero is looking for? I wonder is wherever Ziggy's core is. It's like, now you think about it, if Ziggy wasn't protecting, wherever his core is, like, he definitely would have died right here. Like if he just went right through it, unless there's something different about Ziggy compared to like the other machines. He tries to use his gravity manipulation on the dice, doesn't do anything, and he just like gets some shot right through his face or through his neck. It just does, again, damage, but we don't know exactly what Ziggy's threshold of damage is. The only thing we really know about like the robots is they need their core. It's essentially like it's essentially just like their heart, but obviously like I don't imagine they can bleed out, because like if you destroy their whole body, and as long as you have all their information in their code within their core, you should theoretically just be able to give them like a whole new body. At least that's what I've made out so far within the series. But the gravity's not working on the dice, and that's when the whole information about like the Empire dice, they're a set of relics, and I had to go back and look. I don't think they're with other items that were listed as like the relics to find Mother, because I'm wondering if the Eden Zeros are going to need to take those after it. But I feel like if they take those, that's going to be too OP. So maybe Mishima is going to end up pretty much having them get destroyed whenever Shura like sets off all those antimatter bombs, because those are OP just by themselves. Like if Shiki and them had them, it's like a fast track just to get to Mother. I don't really know what would be the case that Mishima would want to do with that. But Nero's explaining that it doesn't really matter who really dies around him, as long as he's like doing what the dice say. His like victory is assured. He's never gonna really lose. And I definitely one of those things that's gonna determine like I keep messing up names. Nero's threat level is whatever his own ether gear does, because being able to predict, well, not even predict the future. The dice are just telling you, but it's like, say it's like like for an example, there's an ability in a series Zatch Bell called Answer Talker, and it will tell the user, because it's like an ocular ability that goes through the eyes. They can, quote unquote, see the answer to things. They know what to do. But if they're faced with a situation that's so overwhelming, there's no way that they can kind of get out of it in any form of known manner. So Nero has like a really good ability, but it's like, say a chronophage was barreling directly to his planet, exactly where he's at, with the dice, and like he doesn't have any ships, he has no way of getting off the planet. What would the dice do? I don't really imagine they'd be like, oh yeah, if you backflip right when he does it, you're gonna be fine. No. And another part that I really liked that Ziggy did in this chapter is when he he pretty much just force grabs. He's grabbing the place. He just grabs onto a ship and throws it right into right in the way of the dice to block, and then uses gravity manipulation to shoot out a bunch of the missiles. I just thought that was really cool, because like that's something that I think like gravity manipulation is such a neat thing. Obviously, just like grabbing whatever random and chucking it, or like telekinesis, as well as the fact there's a guy in there, so it's like he's, as a machine and a bad guy, does not give a shit about this random guy. So just being a bit more ruthless, but in a way that's not just like, yeah, grabs per. Actually, if he grabbed a guy and threw it in front of the dice and like chucked his body at Nero, that would have been hilarious, but pretty gory at the same time. But one thing I did note is between Shura and Shiki, obviously an aspect that has been set up is Shiki can manipulate other things with his gravity, but he specializes in manipulating himself. And it's not just gravity punches, it's also stuff like gravity center, like messing with his own position gravity. And then obviously how he moves in general is by shifting gravity around him, so he's falling in different directions. But Ziggy is doing both. Like he's grabbing stuff with gravity, and he's doing the normal kind of magic punch with gravity. I thought that was just cool, because it's like, yeah, Shura and Ziggy are just, they're way lower level people within the same ability pool as him, like exact same type. It's not like people who are just, oh, they have a similar type of power. It's like, no, it's the same one. Like you had Ziggy top both of them. They are set shift between the two of them. And I'm actually really impressed that Nero is blocking like attacks from Ziggy just with his dice. Not even really blocking, I guess, kind of like countering them to a degree. There's like a part where they throw attacks, and I thought they blocked like attacks clash, but I was just looking at it again. It's more like they just were deciding to attack the other, and they were just willing to let the enemy's moves hit if their attacks went off, which in this scenario would have actually been bad for a lot of characters, for them, because like say you had a character with some like a OP ability that could like do something special on a hit, for Nero, all he's really doing at this point is he's throwing the dice. We don't know if the dice have any special effect when they hit somebody, if there's like some OP ability that kind of carries with it, or if they're just really high speed moving projectiles. Because like, imagine if it wasn't just like a gravity enhanced punch or like the dice being thrown, and like one of the characters had like just hit the other with a really OP ability, like some form of status effect, like because I hit you with this thing, it's gonna do internal, like even internal damage, just be like, oh shit, well it's gonna crush your organs or something, or something that like lowers your stats, like your speed. But while he's talking to him, it's like, whatever I have to sacrifice is a great price to pay for victory, and even if my empire's lost, that's the price that I'm willing to pay to kill you. So with one thing with Nero, he looks bigger. Like when he said that, he got buffer. Like the dude looks jacked. And he's got like this weird energy around his hand, and there's even a point where, like they're directly in front of each other, and then bam, he's behind Ziggy. So I'm wondering if it's like a teleportation power, if it's a spatial thing, because I always figured the Empire dice were part of his ether gear, but no, there's something completely separate. So whatever his ether gear is, got to be something extra strange. Again, I'm kind of hoping it's space. I'm hoping it's a spatial power, because I really like for him the whole idea that like with dice, and he's thinking everything almost like it's a civilization game, that he would kind of want to control the pieces, like he's like the idea of like him like manipulating what's on the board. I think that'd be really cool, because like she mistaken some aspects, like he's taken the whole idea of like a ruler and like looking at things kind of like a game that Zareth had, but instead of it being what Zareth does to kind of cope Cheetah's curse, that's like the focus primarily of Nero's character. That's like way more of a core aspect, where it's like just a variable of what Zareth had. But also, if he has space, it's kind of like a little bit like Minerva's territory, when she just goes doing her thing of just kind of like choosing what goes on where within like the battlefield she's in. I think if Nero combined those while also having a not future sight, but the dice kind of just telling him what to do, would be a really nasty combo. If he's just like, go here, do this, and then you just instantly teleport over there and you're able to attack that way, especially with the dice. Considering the dice, he can just shoot them out at people and they come back to him. Like those two together aren't like, those two separate aren't like that crazy, like the dice and then like teleporting. But if you're teleporting around and you know exactly where to stand, or exactly where to go to dodge attacks and just like land attacks on your opponent, that's gonna be pretty sick. Especially one thing I just wanted to say before I get to like the Shiki and Shura stuff is, if Shura's overdrive looks like that, I can only imagine what Nero's overdrive is going to look like. His is going to be really cool. I think his overdrive has the potential to be the coolest one in the series, because when you think about it, all the other characters are human that we've seen overdrives from. Everybody else is shown is like human and then cladding onto it, like gaining an extra thing, obviously like horns, or in Shura's case, tentacle hair. But it's like, think of what Nero's is gonna look like. Like I just like imagine like his hair turning into like giant hydras or something badass like that. But once like that whole portion is over, like that's when Ziggy's even saying like, how did you behind me hiding your ether gear's power? So we're gonna see that soon. I wish he got that power at some point, like at some point when they were friends, just kind of like casually being like, hey, I showed you my ether gear, can you tell what yours does? Nudge nudge, wink wink. But Shura, who knows what's going on over there, he's like excited to blow up the planet, and he doesn't really care. There's like a kind of just like a reminder that he doesn't care about the lives of the people lost on that planet that are just there. Like Shiki even asked him about it, and he's mad that Shura has absolutely zero care about the life of like these of like the people on there. And he picks up all these like metal grate panels, and this one I really like, just because they're essentially each like a projected blade that he's chucking at these guys. Goes in for an attack, just goes for a nice long-legged kick, shoots Shiki through the ceiling, and he's like saying how he brings up a good point when he's like, what about me? Like, what, does my life carry weight in your mind? And like for Shiki, I'd be real easy about this. I'd be like, yeah, but I mean, like if you are trying to snuff out other people, then your life is a danger to others. So it becomes more of a like, if you just chilled, then you would like, we wouldn't have to do this. But at the very least, you should be locked up. Just beat him unconscious. Shiki doesn't have to murder him, but Shiki could literally just beat him up and give him to the hand him over to the Interstellar Union Army. That could absolutely like be a solution if Shiki just didn't feel like killing, or like wasn't enough of a conundrum with Shura's whole question there. But at the same time, he's like, you know, whatever, you know, this is gonna be fun. It's a shame I'd have more time with the witch to kind of like do more with her. But at any moment now, we're gonna be activating the All Link and killing all of the robots in the cosmos. That's what Shiki goes overdrive, and Shura's a little bit surprised, but at the same time, he's clearly delighted. He's like, you know, I didn't know you could do that too, but that's how it's gonna be. Let me show you. That's when he brings out his. Now, I've seen some people be not too keen on the form. I like the form a lot. Here's why I like the form. One, the legs are like a little bit strange to me, not like bad, where he's got like scales coming out around his knees and stuff. They're kind of protruding out. But here's the thing about him. Actually, let me scroll back one second. I wanted to look at his pants because I was just wondering if the form changed the pants, because he's got scales on the pants too. So here's the thing. Shura, though he's not related to Nero, we don't know exactly what makes the forms of the Overdrive. Like it's clear that it's not like every Overdrive has every Ether Gear has the same Overdrive. These two have the exact same Ether Gear, so their Overdrives, theoretically, if that was the case, would be the same, whereas now it's different. I'm wondering if it's more like it has something to do with the person. It has something to do with like their own innate ether, because with the idea of Overdrive is their Ether Gear is making the ether in their body go critical. So I think there's definitely like a set amount of like identity behind it. But when talking about the form itself, Shura is a prince, and then, you know, for him wanting to come up to be emperor of an aquatic cosmos, and his empire is obviously set around that as well. Like in the Aoi cosmos, there's all this water and there's like these space fish. It's very aquatically themed. So him having like a aquatic design for his Overdrive makes sense. That just makes sense to me. Plus, I like it. It makes him look like a aquatic space alien. Like if Nero didn't exist and it was the idea of like him, like this is pretty much what I would imagine like if Nero was human, rather, this is what I would have imagined his Overdrive to kind of be like. So Shura getting like a similar set is pretty cool. Like the only thing I'd wonder is like, why would he have it kind of like his father? Unless it's because he's trying to succeed him, he still like learned from him. Like maybe that's it, because Shiki has horns slightly similar to like the shape that Ziggy's horns go up, whereas Shura's go similar to that of Nero's hair, of his father's like weird squid hair. So I'm wondering if it has something to do with your mind state and something to do with like who taught you. Well, no, because it's not who taught you, because obviously Nero didn't teach Shura. But something to do with kind of like their like what's in their mind. Maybe it's something to do with like kind of how they grow up. Kind of like how Zanpakuto work in Bleach. How it's like you have this blank sword and you're putting your own soul into it over time, and then aspects of who you are and your own soul can determine what your Shikai and Bankai are like. But yeah, I like the form. I thought it was pretty cool. Again, I wasn't too keen on it at first. Not like I hated it, but I liked it. But I started to think about it more, and like the fish hair, the tentacles, or and the scales. I don't know why I said tentacles when I already talked about the fish hair. I like the combo set. I think it looks good, and I want to see like if there's a higher level. I'm still thinking that like Shiki and all of theirs like from the Eden Zero is like Overdrive Stage 1, because especially now when we're seeing other characters with it, like you know other members of the Eden Zero, Shura in this case, and then you look at Draken Joe's. Draken Joe's was his entire body, and Draken Joe logically is a way more experienced person with his Ether Gear, so it would make sense of like why he'd be way further along in the Ether Gear table, whereas like these guys are only like the first step into Overdrive. So we'll see. Other than that, solid chapter. I definitely like the fight between both. Shiki like getting his eye hurt. I wonder if it's gonna be damaged or if it's just dead, like he loses an eye. I think that would actually be really cool if Mishima gave him, gave him the one eye treatment and then just had that for sure for Shiki. Unless he wants to give him a mechanical eye, that's obviously also a thing. Maybe he gives him like one of those cool X-ray eyes, like with his goggles. Something like that would be really cool. Like with Mishima, he has liberty to do a little bit more like loss of limb and stuff in the series, because like generally in series a character gets like an arm cut off, unless they get that reattached, they're not gonna get it back. Granted, like stuff like Magic and other series, like especially in fantasy, you can just give somebody an arm back, but it's like you have established rules that would be way more difficult. Say for instance, So like, say in series Toriko, this is just the last thing I want to mention. There's a part where I won't go into spoilers. There's a part where the main character loses an arm, and they pretty much plant what will grow into a new arm, but it takes a while. It's only because the main character, like his gourmet cells, which is a thing in the series, and his appetite and stuff, it nourished the plant thing they put in his arm, so it grew way faster. So I think it was only like a couple days or something instead of what have been, I think it was supposed to be like years or something, or months or years. But it's still something established in the verse where it's like, you can lose an arm, but it's not easy to get back. Like if it was Fairy Tail or a Wraith Master, you could have something like you could get a mechanical arm or a magic arm, but it's not the same as like Eden Zero, where like body parts are like, look at Jin. Having mechanical limbs, augmented limbs, is way easier to get, and it's way easier to make them beneficial, well, without establishing a bunch of new rules in the story to have. So like with Shiki, for another example, just real quick, is when Wise lost his arm in World 29, I figured, okay, yeah, he's gonna be gone, because like we see that Wise, the old man Wise, has a robotic arm, and it's an easy fix to give them a robotic arm, because you can have it pretty much be fully functional, like again, Jin, without it without it really taking a lot of notice as the fact it is a mechanical arm. You can just kind of like do it a little bit more leniently, I think, within other series. So like, for instance, in Eden Zero, healing is going to be way more technological most of the time. Not counting like witch and stuff, but like most part like healing pods or like medicines and stuff. However, their stuff is a setup. Whereas like something like with Fairy Tail, like you can use magic to heal. Obviously, it's not as common as like, you know, high-tech medicine, but you know what I mean, in the gaps between like where certain things can lie between boundaries of fiction, whereas like one thing can be way more difficult in one series. Like, just as another thing, like Black Clover has a ton of healers. There's barely any healers in Fairy Tail because healing is lost magic, whereas like physical durability feats in like Black Clover is not that often, where it's like you have like people taking beatings left, right, and center from like normal melee attacks all the time. And then you can kind of like look at something like how that is like One Piece doesn't have a lot of hacks, but they have a ton of like high stamina feats, like people fighting for days, where it's like Fairy Tail has like lots of hacks, but they don't have tons of high stamina feats. It's just one of those mixed matches when you can see in series like some things are more common than others, whereas others like it's more scarce. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, thumbs up the video, but friend the like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. But than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.